doesn't need an introduction. You know exactly who he is. I want to introduce Adam Frost, everybody.
Hello. I just thought I'd bring you a little guest. Anybody that obviously watches Gardener's World, you've actually now officially met Buster. What do you think, son? What do you think? Yeah, it's all right, Dad. This is what happens. You know, when you're on the telly, this is what happens when you travel the country. You end up in marquees, and people come and look at you. Slightly strange, isn't it? Yeah. He's a miniature Jack Russell, bless him. He's only 12 months old, but he's a bit of a diamond, ain't you, boy? Anyway, we best crack on, because otherwise you'll just be taking pictures and going, oh, for the next hour. Yeah, bless. All right, were you going to take it?
Has he got his lead on still?
He has
been promoted to dog handler.
There we go. See you in a minute, boy. Right, cool. Right, afternoon, everybody. I know there's not a lot going on in Rutland, but this is a joke. All right? Honestly. Just wow. Thank you. I'd be lying if I didn't say I've got goosebumps at this point. There's loads of people out there. And I am lucky enough that I get well supported wherever I go, but to come and do your home show and walk out of this is absolutely amazing. So thank you for that. For those that don't know, I suppose, I moved to the area when I was 21 years old. I got a job for Jeff Hamilton. Yeah, exactly. Well, to be fair, I nearly didn't get a job for Jeff Hamilton. I was working in London, and it was a recession, so a lot of people were losing their jobs, and I saw a little advert in the Horticultural Week that said young landscaper required for television garden in Rutland. I'm thinking, well, that sounds quite interesting. Anyway, I applied and I got an interview. And I'll be really honest now, I knew sort of who Jeff Hamilton was. I mean, I'm 21 years old, Gardener's World, Friday night, pub, you know, which was a blessing, because when I eventually arrived, I could speak. So I came up for the interview, I followed this man round for a couple of hours. At that point, really, probably only about half plus of the main garden was built. My job was going to be to build the public garden, help Nick set the nursery up. Anyway, I followed him round, met Nick, then drove into Stamford afterwards, was blown away by meeting Jeff. Anyway, then drove back home, and about a week and a half later, the phone rang, and it was Jeff Hamilton. In fact, it was just that long ago, it was when the phone was still attached to the wall. Yeah? All right? And we said the number. Do you remember we said the number when we answered? Yeah. So obviously I said the number, and he said it was Jeff, and Adam, I just want to thank you for coming up and the interview and that. He said, you know, you've done really well. But all intents and purposes, I'd come second. So he was going to offer it. He'd already offered the job to someone more qualified, was his words, than me. But he'd love to keep your name on record, because, you know, there might be an opportunity to come up in the future.
Yeah, we used to say that as well.
Anyway, I said thank you very much, and I put the sort of phone down. And then girlfriend at the time said, who was that? I said, well, Jeff, did you get the job? I said, no, I didn't get the job. Said, well, you know, so we carried on looking. Anyway, about 3 weeks later, the phone rang again, and it was Jeff Hamilton, you know. So I picked the phone up, you know, said the number, and first thing was, it's Jeff here. Hello, Jeff, how can I help you? You know, he said, well, have you found yourself a job yet, boy? And I said, well, no, you know, but I'm still looking. Well, he said, well, we'd like to. It's not really worked out with the other fella. He said he felt he was a bit overqualified. So I said, did he? Anyway, he said, we'd love to offer you the opportunity. To which I said, well, if it's okay with you, I'll get back to you. Not good, is it? All right. I mean, we could go into the whole difficult childhood and a very angry 21-year-old, but we ain't got time for that today. All right. Anyway, I put the phone down, and the girlfriend at the time said, "It's actually Jeff Hamilton." She said, "Well, what did he want?" I said, "He's offered you that job. Offered me that job." She said, "What'd you say?" I said, "No." I said, "I'd get back to him." I said, I'm not playing second fiddle to anyone." Anyway, she phoned my mum. And I phoned Jeff back and said, "Yeah, I'd love to take the job." Yeah, and it's scary, isn't it? Because it's a true story. And then I suppose, you know, the 21-year-old me moved up here. And interestingly, part of what we're talking about today, which is ultimately getting the most out of your garden, so much of that moral compass was set by him. If you look back to when I went to work for him, 21 years old, he was peat free, it was organic, he was already talking about the destruction that we were doing to the countryside. You know, so a man completely and utterly ahead of his time, you know, and next August it will be 30 years, and if you think about it, you know, it feels like the world's been playing catch up with Jeff Hamilton, which is amazing, you know, and interestingly, he would always say to me, the answer's in the soil, boy. You know, even when I was sort of, you know, into my sort of slightly later 20s, I was still getting called boy. And I think for me to pick up, you know, it was him that sent me off and trained in design. In fact, David Stevens was here somewhere, he might be out the back there, who was a great friend, but it was David Stevens that Jeff sent me to train in design. And you know, and the career that I've had has been mind-blowing, really. I mean, can you imagine the first time I did Gardeners World?
Sure.
Could you imagine, you know, I'm kneeling in the border, waiting for the camera to come up for me to go, "Hello. Welcome to Gardeners World," you know? And I mean, let's be honest, like, the music comes on at the moment. I mean, Monty, that's big boots to follow, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the music comes on, the dog runs out, the hands follow, you know? And then, you know, and then the whole world feels like a wonderful place. But think about it, I didn't just have that to feel. I had Jeff Hamilton on my shoulder saying, "Don't you cock this up, son." You know? Yeah, so that sort of full circle to end up, you know, as the supply teacher, as I like to call myself when his lordship wants a couple of weeks off. Yeah, I don't mind filling his boots, but I'm not wearing his clothes. That's true, yeah? You got no over that, haven't you? You know, funny, he's a good friend. He's a good friend, and we do have a giggle, especially at Chelsea, because Chelsea Flower Show, I've always got a Paul Smith suit on. I like to make an effort. He wears exactly the same stuff, but he has a scarf. The bit that amazes me, right? Would you believe this? Right here, he's got a tailor. I've gone, what? "No, Frosty, no, someone makes this." I said, "Monty, don't take this the wrong way, pal, but if I could afford to have a tailor, I'd get one to make me clothes that fit." All right? But he's a wonderful, wonderful man, and we're good friends. So that's the sort of full story, I suppose, of working for Jeff and ended up on the telly. But the idea of, he would say, the soil. So I think what I want to do is just take you through how I look at plants, how I put plants together. I suppose how I feel I get more out of the garden. I think part of the problem we do with gardens is we chase this big perfect picture, you know, and we that idea of perfection. I mean, it doesn't happen because you've got sort of show gardens, you've got television programs. I mean, even us in Gardeners World, you know, we show you these beautiful gardens. And you know, you turn the telly off and you think, "No, that's what I want. I want one of them." You know, reality is, it's not really there. You know, gardens are just about moments. That's all they are. And to get more out of your garden, ultimately, is how many more moments can you get out of your year. What I can promise you is every single one of the gardens that we film Gardeners World in, has rubbish bits. We just don't film them. Right? It's the same if you look at magazines, you know, nobody's going to go round, the photographer's not going to go round and take pictures of rubbish gardens, is he? He's just going to take pictures of the good bits. So for me, gardens, you know, they are about moments. And moments in your garden are supplied by so many things, you know. But before you even get to the planting, you know, as Jeff would say, you know, the answer's in the soil.